This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by Globalspeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of Globalspeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Raj, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you.
Innovator, Accelerator. One of the things that I've often thought about over the course of years is, could you actually teach entrepreneurship? Could you actually teach innovation? Or was that something that literally had to be in your DNA? Talk a little bit about how that might work. How does an innovative accelerator, what is the construct of that? How does it work?
Let me. I think it might be helpful to fill in a context. I work for an organization called the Apollo Education Group, and essentially we're a large kind of for-profit education institution. You probably know one of our brands in the U.S., University of Phoenix.
Sure.
But what we do is we look at, we've been in the, I call it the disruption innovation space in education for a long time. We actually were founded in the 70s. And people think of us as an online education institution, and back in the 70s there were no online education institutions, so we were, actually predating online. And one of the things that we looked at was, we know that innovation and disruption are part of every business. And as opposed to kind of waiting for this to happen to us, we decided to take this upon ourselves. And we designed a group that is looking at kind of what's going on next generation in education and innovation. And that's kind of where this program kind of grew out from. It was something that we started back in 2011 as something called Phoenix Lecture Series. And we partnered with Gary Hamill. We looked at leadership. We looked at technology with a guy named Nicholas Negroponte from MIT. And we also looked at innovation by talking to Clayton Christensen. I don't know how much background you have on Clay, but he's kind of one of the gurus in innovation disruption. And when we were talking to him and we created these programs, we basically created 90-minute education programs. They were all online, all kind of high-end video, good graphic, and we used it for our own students. Being an education institution, we actually put it as part of our business school, and we rolled it out internally, and then we decided to take snippets of it, put it out on the social network, and we got more hits on those 3 videos than we did on our Phoenix site, and that kind of led us to wonder kind of what's going on. What is the deal with innovation? Specifically, because that one kind of came to the top. And we used that as a way to start this program. Innovator Accelerator is basically an online, I call it a boot camp, an innovation boot camp that you can go through. It's about 7 weeks to go through it. We partnered with IDEO, the design school that's known for creating the help Steve Jobs with the mouse way back when. We partnered with them to design this thing, and it's been really fun to see that happen. We've been in the market for not too long. We're still relatively new, and I can tell you more about it. But that's essentially the idea is that we designed this program that can teach you the kind of the core skills of innovation, and that's the background.
So the outcome of the accelerator itself is to stimulate the ability to innovate, or specifically look at a particular industry or vertical, a combination of both?
Good question. It's actually a bit of both. The first idea of stimulation is a really good point. I mean, that innovation, when I've been looking at the topic and kind of going deep on this stuff, I've learned that there's something called front-end innovation and back-end innovation. Front-end is all about the idea generation, and the back-end is all about kind of delivery and execution. What I learned is that you kind of need both. Without having that front-end kind of set up properly, it's very hard to execute the back-end. What Innovator Accelerator does is it gives you the tools and the framework based on Clayton Christensen's work around what are the core skills of innovation, and it teaches you those skills. It helps you work through those kind of what innovators look like and how do you learn those skills, and then it gives you a chance to apply it. So you do work in team projects, kind of cohort-driven, and you can try to address it with a company challenge on an innovation project, like a Six Sigma or like an action learning project type thing.
Okay, I got you. So it's as much for an individual who wants a career advancement as it might be for a CEO or CTO and a team within an organization or an enterprise that's, say, working on a particular objective or project.
That's correct, and it's interesting that you caught that so quickly, because when we first rolled it out, we did a beta release in the fall, and we had it as one program. and we realized that there are two kind of solutions here, or two kind of issues. And one was the individual skill development, and the other was this idea of kind of team projects. So we actually developed two solutions, and we started rolling that out in January. One's called IA, the kind of the base skills, if you will, the individual skill development. The other is called IX, which is about the actual project base. It's an extended version that's focused on specific projects for different companies.
It's kind of, I guess, ridiculous for me to sit and say, boy, what a great idea. You guys are really onto something. But if you look at it from an objective standpoint, one of the great things we do here at Tech Talk is we have this ability to network in the old sense, the traditional sense of networking, across every single vertical. We talk to all kinds of people, all kinds of industries, all kinds of C-level titles, and innovators and entrepreneurs as well. And I think right now there seems to be this transformational period from old economy to new economy. And the digital economy is representing, once again, as there have been in other decades, literally, figuratively, this entire disruption to these verticals in ways that are happening so quickly that in many cases you've got legacy systems where there are players that are locked into cultures or locked into technologies that want to move but can't. I would think that someone like what you're doing with the Apollo Group and the Innovator Accelerator, it's a natural for this time, for those individuals, as we talked about, be them an enterprise or an individual, to learn more about a skill that's going to become, I think, if you can call innovation a skill, more critically important than it's ever been.
Yeah, it's such an interesting space, and I agree with you. You make a really good point around the time of it. And it seems like things are moving so much faster, right? You look at technology, and you look how fast, and I can't believe you look even 5 years ago, and you look at the cell phone market, right? You talk about BlackBerry and Nokia, right? You don't talk about those companies anymore, right? I mean, it's amazing how 5 years. I mean, Motorola, Nokia, BlackBerry, those aren't the innovators or leaders in the smartphone space, and who knows what's going to be 5 years from now, right? So it's a constant kind of evolution. But what we've learned, and frankly, by going through something like this, I think this idea of it can be learned. I mean, I think everyone's thinking, I can't be the next Steve Jobs, and I'm not going to get the next iPhone. I don't think innovation is just about that. I think that's one form of innovation. I think there's innovation in all kinds of things, and the skills we focus on are things like questioning, networking, or associating. And I'll give you some examples around this. The first one, if you look at this idea of questioning, I used to think, the dirty little secret when I was a little, my elementary school teacher would say, there's no such thing as asking a bad question or a wrong question, right? And I used to firmly believe that because that's what we were taught as elementary kids and whatnot. But hey, John, you can ask any question you like. But as I got older, I realized that there is such a thing as better questions to ask versus not, right? And if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers, right? And that is really what one of those skill sets here is about questioning, right? So how do you ask better questions, and what does that mean, and how do you practice that? Right? We give you opportunities to do that in that.
Well, even embracing that thought is pretty sophisticated in an effort to really, as you were talking, I was thinking, certainly deductive reasoning is mandatory if you got to figure out how to get out of the door, open the door and close the door kind of thing. But I would think that innovative reasoning is almost a situation that is it isn't just about being a jobs and introducing a new technology. It's dealing with change and dealing with as much. When you're talking about phones, I was thinking about one of the things that I use as a cliche anymore is you have 3D printers that can print 3D printers. So we're talking about cognitive computing. We're talking about predictive analytics. We're talking about broadband at speeds that we simply don't even understand what the capacity of supercomputing will be. How does an individual survive if they don't have an innovative courage, if you will?
And the thing you talk about is that something that's for everyone. Right, and I could argue that not everyone needs to be, again, I know not everyone's going to next Steve Jobs, but even some of these skills, everyone in the organization may not have to have that need. I think of similar to kind of Maslow's, pyramid needs or whatever that is, where, like initial things about, hunger, if you need to feed the hunger or you need to just survive, right? Some people are just worried about having a job. But I would say, when it comes to survival of these organizations, there's a fair amount of people thinking about this and struggling with this. We had talked to the Conference Board, and Conference Board is an entity that do these surveys, and they talk to CEOs, and they interviewed thousands of CEOs and do this on an annual basis, and they ask them what keeps them up at night. What are these top 5 challenges, or what are the top challenges? And they would come back with things like, competition, or keeping our customer, or finding talent. But innovation was also something that was really top of mind, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're struggling, like everyone. How do we make sure that we stay relevant, right? And those relevant thoughts come from having the right people that are thinking that way and thinking outside the box and asking these kind of questions. And that's a very key skill, right? So it's, again, all the things that we're trying to work on with this. Again, this is not a panacea or kind of a silver bullet, but we believe that it is something that more organizations are looking at and trying to figure out how they can teach these kind of skills to their employees.
Well, you can't solve a problem until you know what it is, and until you want to mine this situation and put a focus on it, there's no telling what you're going to uncover as time goes by. And again, the whole concept of innovation, sadly, it's a cliche to a degree because the word's overused. I think it's a case where we're moving into a time when it's never meant more. I mean, we jokingly say dynamic and fluid and dynamic fluidity, and I was joking earlier with another conversation that it's almost phantasmagoric. I mean, it's a case where you can't predict anything anymore. A little magical hybriding, and boom, a 3D printer comes about, kind of a thing, and everything changes. As we begin to close, give us some idea of what you perceive to be most innovative companies. Who are they? And then maybe give us some idea about how organizations are leveraging the power of your accelerator.
Yeah, well, see, it's a really interesting question. So I think when I'm out there talking to different companies and people, and I ask them who they think the innovative companies are. Let's start with you. What do you think? When I say innovative companies, who do you usually think of? What are usual suspects that you may think of?
You're talking to me?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'll rhetorically.
Google.
I'll ask you directly.
Google.
Google. Good. Who else do you usually think of? What comes up to mind? Maybe an Apple, right?
Well, certainly, sure. I think the obvious brands. I'm not sure that you can really tell who's. When I think of Cisco and I think of some of the players that maybe don't have as large a consumer ad budget that are probably doing some great UPS for all that we know, or Home Depot.
Well, so here's the interesting. So Forbes does this annual survey on kind of the most innovative companies, right? And what's striking is that Apple's not even in the top 5. Huh. Right, Apple is actually number 79 in this last year, and they were in their 20s 2 years ago, and they were they were higher up a couple of years ago. But the real issue is that innovation is a lagging indicator. Yeah. So let me give you a real example. Back in 1998, when Jobs resurrected, came from the dead, if you will, to come back to save Apple. Do you think Apple was an innovative company back in '98? The answer is probably no. It took until 2001 when you saw the first iPod come out in 2002, and they all said, "Oh my God, they got these iPhones and they got that iPad." Okay, you think, well, this is a massively innovative company. Yeah,
the innovator became an implementer.
It takes years for that to happen, right? And the same thing happens in reverse, right? So it takes time. So we still have this. And again, I love Apple. I have products. I'm just picking on them. You spitz on this one, but we've noticed some things lately, right, with Apple, where the Apple Map product didn't quite work as well, as Apple would have liked it to, right? It drove you in the wrong direction. Or I noticed my 5, my iPhone 5. The battery life isn't as good, right? I've heard that, with a lot of people. It just isn't doing what it used to do. And we don't want to say anything, but something just seems off, right? Something seems different, right? And again, it's one of those weird things where Apple's a huge, amazing company that does some great things. And again, I'm not just picking on them. I see this as a thing.
Well, I think it's a good analogy in order to draw a comparison.
Exactly. There's something to be said, right? So the list, when I think about what's going on, I think if you think about innovation and think of it as a journey versus a destination, it helps with this idea, right? That you literally have to build these skills, and you got to put the time in to build those skills and think differently. Have you heard of a company called Nest? Nest just they're a thermostat company that was actually founded by these ex-Apple employees. And what's a fascinating story about these guys is that they really looked at the thermostat and they said, you know what? I mean, they asked a really fundamental question. What if we could, make that product something easier to use? And you think, well, a thermostat's a thermostat. What's the big deal, right? But they actually found something that was really clever in design, and they focused on design. How do you make that product easier to use, easier to manipulate, easier to operate from these devices that we have in our hand, right? Mm-hmm. And you fast forward, and you think, my God, they created this in 2010. They got acquired this year by Google for about a couple $2 billion. Right, and they're a small company. They're not, they're a handful of people, right? And you think about these innovations, it's mind-blowing where they're coming from.
Well, and they're not silos. I mean, those innovations hybrid on innovations that hybrid on innovations. I mean, if that's what Google is all about. Well, we're quickly running out of time. One last question, and again, I want to make that point, and that is, how are organizations leveraging the Innovator Accelerator?
Great question. It is still we're still early days. Like I said, we did the beta in the fall, and we're kind of early out. But I can give you some interesting examples. You mentioned Cisco. They're actually a partner of ours, and they actually decided to use IA. They built an innovation academy around IA, and what they're doing is they're actually saying, look, why couldn't we? We need to teach these skills. We do a lot of acquisitions on a regular basis. We're realizing that the vocabulary innovation is not the same. So they're using it as a way to level set and basically drive some common vocabulary amongst what does it mean to be innovative, right? And they're also using the project elements of this to actually drive further innovation at Cisco, right? So we're seeing some interesting traction. There's Sony, Kimberly-Clark, or other big brands they're using it, and they're finding neat ways to come at it. We're seeing it in the public sector, ironically. Some government entities are looking at this and trying to use it as a way to look at sustainability and leverage it across different communities. So it's really fascinating to see a program like this. It's all it's web-based, it's on the cloud, good, easy to access, from your mobile devices or whatever, and it just allows you to kind of think about innovation differently. That's been really our goal.
Well, the bottom line of it is, Raj, I think it's just the beginning. I'm clearly from one person's perspective, but again, being this conceptualizer that deals with a lot of eclectic conversation and trends, I think you guys are right on point, and I think this is a situation that's only going to magnify itself. It'll be interesting not only to see how fast you grow, but how you morph yourselves into new and exciting things. Well, I'll tell you what, thank you so much for taking time to be with us. Thank you for what you're doing. It's really exciting. I hope you'll join us again soon and give us an update on how things are going. But thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us today on Tech Talk.
I appreciate you allowing me to chat with you. Thank you.